Hello everyone, it's Joseph Dunphy here, and this is your weekly Grass10 grazing management update on the dairy edge. The pasture-based data for this week: the average farm cover is sitting at 679 kilos dry matter per hectare, and the growth is sitting at 30. The diet currently going in on pasture-based Ireland is 10.5 kilos of grass, 5 kilos of meal, and 3 kilos of silage. Dry matter percentages recorded over the last number of days are ranging from 23% in Johnstown Castle in County Wexford, 23% in Grange, County Meath, 21% in Oak Park in County Carlow, and 19% in Athenry in County Galway. And this is all first rotation grass. And 16% has been recorded in Moore Park on second rotation grass. With average growth up to in around 30 kilos of dry matter per hectare on average over the last 7 days, and with a good week's weather and forecast, grass growth predictions are up, expected to be in the region between 35 and 45 for most areas of the country over the coming 7 days. Predicted rainfall amounts are very low, with the vast majority of the country expecting very little rain or zero rain over the coming 7 days, with a chance of less than 5 millimetres of rain for the south, east, and the southwest. Average soil temperatures, again, are expected to increase to between 9 and 10 degrees. Your Grass10 tips for this week: once again, super grazing conditions prevail, but grass supply is tight on some farms. Average farm cover needs to be maintained above 600 kilos of dry matter per hectare on all farms throughout the country. As we said already, growth conditions are expected to improve this week, so therefore it's critical that you continue to walk a farm weekly to assess grass supply. About 25% of farms are currently below average farm cover targets on pasture-based Ireland, and a reminder there that growth rates on these farms will be affected during April unless action is taken. And many farms will have to match growth and demand over the coming weeks. And again, very, very important to remember that every difference of 15 kilos between growth and demand reduces average farm cover by over 100 per week. So when we take a deeper dive into this week's dairy farm cover data, as we said already, about 28% of farms are under 600 kilos of dry matter per hectare currently. On average, they have a mean average farm cover of 516. The cover per livestock has now dipped under the 200, which is sitting at 192, and the farms are growing around 24 kilos of dry matter per hectare. The grass allocation target currently for these farms is somewhere between 8 and 10 kilos. For people in the middle category then, which is accounting for about 50% of the people on pasture base, their average farm cover now is sitting between 600 and 800, and a mean average farm cover of 692. Their cover per livestock unit is sitting in a healthy position of 249 kilos, and they're growing that little bit more at in around 30 kilos of dry matter per hectare. The grass allocation target is between 12 and 15, so we're allocating more grass on these, so it's nearly full-time grass. For people who are above 800 kilos of dry matter per hectare, which is about nearly 20% of people, their mean average farm cover is sitting at 890 kilos of dry matter per hectare this week. And their cover per livestock unit, once again, a very healthy 313. And again, growing slightly more than the previous category and growing 34 kilos of dry matter per hectare. And again, the grass allocation targets for these farms is between 15 and 17 kilos of grass, so full-time at grass, and the potential to slightly reduce meal being fed. It's also extremely important that the first paddocks grazed need to be monitored over the next 10 days to 2 weeks. For people who are beginning the second rotation now, on the 7th or 8th of April, the first 4 to 5 grazed paddocks must have a cover of greater than 1100 kilos of dry matter per hectare. If cover is below this threshold, you'll need to extend the rotation start date further into April. For many farms, the average farm cover target should be at least 650 to 700 kilos per hectare or 200 kilos per livestock unit at the start of the second rotation. And if possible, it's important to mix first and second rotation grass. So an example of that would be heavier covers on the first rotation of 1900 by day and put them into second rotation grass by night. One of the other main key messages this week is to consider reseeding. Over the last number of years, weather and grass growth rates have really hampered farmers' ability to get that 8 to 10% reseeding done every year. There's a super opportunity now this year with current ground conditions to plan out your reseeding and get it done now between April and early May. Reseeding is extremely important because it enables more grass to be grown, especially in the spring. It enables more high quality grass to be eaten and therefore higher animal performance. Reseeded pastures are more responsive to nitrogen application, and this is more important than ever with the current climate we're going with reduced nitrogen application rates on farm. It also enables the establishment of clover, which is going to help that nitrogen response piece too. And what we also know is the return on investment is extremely high, that you get your money back in about 2 years. We know that, for instance, in the year after reseeding, we're going to grow about 25% more grass, and in year 2 after that, about 10% more grass. So very, very worthwhile exercise. So over the next coming weeks, make a plan, look through your previous year's pasture-based data, and isolate out a couple of paddocks, somewhere in around 8 to 10% of your milking platform, to do some reseeding on. And make sure that you look at the pasture profit index to select high PPI varieties with good grazing utilization figures to put in on your farm. In this week's Grass10 newsletter, we have a table there on first cut silage nutrient requirements. And just to summarise the couple of key points in it, we're aiming for somewhere in the region of 80 units per acre of nitrogen on first cut silage. So for silage ground that has got cattle slurry, we're aiming to follow that with between 1.5 and 1.6 bags of protected urea plus sulfur per acre. So that's 3800 plus sulfur type product. So I'll have a quick look at that table in this week's Grass10 newsletter for tips on fertilising for first cut silage. And it's important to get up to date with fertiliser application on grazing ground and silage ground this week. This week's featured farmer is David French from Newbawn in County Wexford. His average farm cover is sitting at 683, his growth is 44, and demand is sitting around mid-40s as well. He is 87% grazed. He has 1,100 back on the first 3 grazed paddocks on a second rotation, and he's planning to start his second rotation by on the 6th or 7th of April. Cow diet currently is 14 kilos of grass, a couple of kilos of silage, and 4 kilos meal. The cows are currently yielding 26.5 litres, 4.47 fat, and 3.58 protein. David plans on reseeding 11% of the grazing platform and 10% of his outblock land this spring, and he's planning on spraying off in 2 weeks' time. Lastly, on this week's Grass10 newsletter, in the main Dairy Edge podcast last Monday, there's a super interview with Michael O'Donovan, head of Grassland Science Department, and James Dunn, dairy specialist, on how to increase your grassland performance on your farm. It's about 40 minutes long and it's well worth a listen. So make sure you tune into that. If you'd like to hear more from the Grass10 team, subscribe to the weekly Grass10 newsletter, which is available on the Grass10 page on the Teagasc Public website, and the link to the newsletter is also available in the description of this podcast. We would also like to thank the sponsor of the Grass10 campaign, AIB, Grassland Agro, Department of Agriculture, FBD, and the Farmers Journal. This has been your Grass10 update, and I'll talk to you all next week.